So just before we're about to do this podcast about enjoy your life, it's a gift from God, I have a box of Cheez-Its next to me. When I stand up, I knock the whole thing and they fall on the ground. And I start going, oh, I hate my life. Why is this? Why is this happening to me? Welcome back to the Family Movie Night podcast, where we want to help your family have better conversations around the content you consume. Today is episode 44, and we, all your wonderful co-hosts, are going on an amazing adventure that no one could ever experience except for us, because we are talking all about adventure movies. Today, I have the hero of our podcast, the Indiana Jones, the Jack Sparrow himself, Donnie Dorsey. How you doing today?
I'm feeling heroic.
Yeah, I think so. Donnie, your life in general, on a scale of 1 to Indiana Jones, how adventurous is your life?
I mean, clearly it's Indiana Jones-esque. I mean, there's no way it could.
Your Mutt, whatever his name is, the
Mutt Williams,
the Shia LaBeouf character from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You're adventure adjacent.
That's right.
Very good. Of course, you've already heard the voice of the villain of our podcast, the disposable villain in the way of the adventure, Sawyer Hewlett. How are you doing today?
I'm good. If I'm being honest, today we're just generically talking about what is probably my favorite genre of movie.
I believe that.
I could throw on literally. I don't. You haven't told us what movie you're talking about, Nathan. I promise you, it's a movie I could throw on and be wildly entertained. I watched 4 adventure movies before we aired this podcast. I'm going to use one, but I watched not 4, 3. I watched 3 adventure podcasts.
I will say this much. We, as a kid, I almost talked about it, but I kind of want to save it for a later date. I almost talked about maybe my all-time favorite adventure movie of all time, 1999's The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser. I've watched that movie so many times as a kid. I was like, oh, this is life right here. Just chasing down mummies. DVD. Yeah.
We had that DVD. That's a classic one.
Yeah, so I'll get that. And then, of course, the mom of our podcast, triumphantly returning, unable to be with us on the last podcast to talk about the Seabees because she was just being an actual real-life mom. The mom of our podcast, Heidi Cooper. How you doing?
Hello. Happy to be here again. Missed talking about the Seabees because that was a super good movie.
Yeah, I wanted to say, if you wanted to throw in just a minute on the Sea Beast real quick, because the Sea Beast is a great adventure movie. So just throw some out there.
So much fun. I mean, I love the imagery. I love when the Sea Beast was spinning and making the boat go. Oh, that was so cool. So cool. Yeah, there's so many things about that movie that I loved. But of course, at the end where the little girl stands up for what's right, I'm totally here for it. I have 2 nieces and a daughter, and I watched it with them the week that they were here. And I was like, yes.
Were they into it?
Yes, for sure.
Well, and that's part of the reason we're talking about these.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
And that's part of the reason we're talking about these movies is because, and we're going to talk more about that in a moment, of kids just love adventure movies, man. Kids love going, almost every animated movie is an adventure movie of some kind. I mean, even down to, you take the movie Toy Story from 1995, it is really based around an adventure movie plot, Buzz and Woody get lost and then they have to find their way back and they go to all these different locations. And it's just an amazing thing. And we're going to suggest some specific adventure movies for you to talk about. But before we do that, Donnie Dorsey, why don't you tell them what we do on this podcast?
Well, on this podcast, we encourage every family at Community Christian Church to have a monthly movie night to help you and your children build memories and start conversations that matter. The goal of our family ministry is to help you raise your children to love Jesus and his way of life above all other things. And we know that critical to that is for you to have routine, regular times of connection and shared experiences that'll help you build stronger relationships.
And, movie nights are just great opportunities to do that, because movies are not just an easy way to share laughter and joy, fear, sadness in this safe environment, but they also give us chances to talk about what matters most to us in ways that are meaningful and memorable with our children. And, we want to not only recommend some movies you can watch on your monthly movie night, but give you ideas of meaningful conversations you can have with your children during or after the movie.
And as always, the point of this podcast is not to add one more thing to your to-do list that makes you feel guilty or overwhelmed as a parent. We just want to make it easier for you and your kids to enjoy being together so that you can build memories and have conversations and help them to see your love for Jesus through these fun experiences together.
And so today we're going to actually jump right into the themes, which we normally save towards, the middle to the end of the podcast, because we want to spend a lot of time at the end just talking about these fun movies that you can talk about with your kids. Because here's really the theme, and you saw this maybe already in the description. But, so often in our podcast here, we kind of take a movie that's fun and lighthearted, and then we're like, and here's the theme, here's the conversation, here's the way to talk to your kids about this heavy topic. And those are really important. I mean, that really is what this movie is about. This podcast is about. But one thing of just life with God that is so important is teaching our kids to just enjoy life as a gift from God. That life itself is this amazing adventure of living life with God. And it may not look like Pirates of the Caribbean or going out to find lost gold or some hidden empire or, anything of that nature. But there are ordinary, everyday moments in life that are much bigger than we see. There is this hidden world that we don't ever see. That is just life with God. And that's really what is so captivating about adventure movies. I mean, I think everything from like a fairy tale, if you're kind of on the girl end of like these princess movies where an ordinary girl gets swept up into this adventure and she finds out she's a princess or something of that. It's it's this kid who finds out, oh, aliens just took me and now I've got to go off on this, giant space battle or something like that. It's this idea of being an ordinary person invited into extraordinary events. And we believe that really at the key of everything, that life is this extraordinary opportunity. Even the most ordinary, even the most mundane life is this extraordinary opportunity to partner with the God of the universe. And so here's really the thing we want to get to is just watch a fun adventure movie with your kids and just enjoy life with them. Just remind them, hey, it's fun to laugh together. It's fun to be thrilled together, like a good amusement park. It's just fun to have fun because life is a gift. So I really just want to hear from my co-hosts and see how they think adventure movies in general or just enjoying a good, fun movie with your kids is an opportunity to do that. So I actually want to open it up to the cold-hearted, the dead inside villain of our podcast, Sawyer Hewlett. No kids, but is a kid himself. Kid at heart, Sawyer Hewlett. Tell us what do you got to say about this, man?
I mean, look, I could get emotional just talking about it. So we'll see how this goes. But like, I think that there is just as much value in sitting down and creating a memory, watching a movie with your kid, as there is going on some outdoorsy adventure. And I mean that because I have bold, burned on my brain memories of both is the thing. I love the memories that I have going with my family, going hiking, when I hiked my first mountain with my dad and stuff like that. But just as crystal clear as those memories is my memory of the first time that I watched Star Wars, sitting on the ground in our old house when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And we had this Chargers throw that was maybe 3 or 4 feet wide. And I just got swept away by this movie. And my dad was there is the thing. And it's this moment that I honestly hold very sacred in my heart, because it's just a moment where I look back on my life and I'm like, that's all that mattered. That's all that I had to think about in that moment. I was with my dad and my brother, and John Williams just absolutely murdering it on the score. And there's this character who's looking at two sons. And and I am just having an absolute blast. I mean, I get emotional. Yeah, it's a very powerful thing when you can create these memories with your kids. And I think adventure movies are just excellent vehicles for that. Because here's the thing: what I don't have and what I wouldn't want is a memory of sitting with my dad watching Schindler's List. Okay.
I do have that memory, and it's a wonderful memery. So watch out, Sawyer.
Okay, well, maybe Schindler's List you had a fun time watching with your dad, but I want
to be 100% clear before you say that. I did not have fun watching it, but it's a good memory. Not all memories have to be happy memory.
No, you're right. But no, I think that adventure movies also can serve as a way to, kind of what Nathan was talking about, create a love of life. Because here's the other thing I can say about that moment. It made me go outside. I stopped wanting to watch Star Wars at a point, and I wanted to go outside and live Star Wars. And your kids watching adventure movies and with your kids, creating those memories, it makes those kids bold. And I think it weirdly empowers them. I don't know exactly how it happens, but I simply know that it happens. Okay. Watching an adventure movie with your kid will do something to them, especially if it's a good one like Star Wars. And that's not, I don't even think I'm going to talk about Star Wars, but.
Well, you just did for a long time.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think Star Wars has a good example of Star Wars is the most of an ordinary person, right? He's a farm kid, and he just dreams of this greater life, bigger life, and then he gets swept into a greater story. And I think to your point there, Sawyer, I think being able to watch a movie like this and to kind of have that emotion. I think movies have a way, obviously, of drawing out emotion in us, and emotions tend to bond us in memories, and being able to kind of share that with your kids and really be able to kind of ask them, like, what gets your heart beating fast like that? You know, maybe with your teenagers, because that sounds like a weird question to ask to your kids because your 4-year-old has no answer to that. But my heart palpitations, I have a murmur. So that's what gets my heart going fast. I don't know. But having a conversation with your kids about, hey, what makes you excited to be alive? What makes you feel like, man, I'm so thankful to have been alive? And I think those kind of conversations are huge. Heidi Cooper, you had already said you were very excited that we're just talking about this concept. So why don't you get into it here?
Oh yeah, man, I'm so excited about this because this is something that I feel a lot like Sawyer in. I think there was a lot of things that you said that really resonated with me as well. And I think the thing that you were kind of pointing at was like that experience when you're a child of like awe and wonder and like just being captivated by something you experience. So for you, that was Star Wars. And you said, I wanted to go out and live Star Wars. And you know, as a child probably recreated that. But all of those things kind of point back to the things like, I've never really talked about this with you guys, but I do like, written word, like kind of poetry. And so much of that is all about the things I see around me in nature and the things I see around me in the world, because like being able to get outside of myself and see what's around me, that is that spirit of adventure because it's unknown. And so anything, whatever that looks like for people, I think that just fostering that, you know, part of yourself that is willing to behold things that make you feel awestruck, and, you know, feel wonder and feel excitement and smallness. If I can be honest, I think it's the smallness and that kind of thing is what adventure, you know, around every group of people can get on board with adventures because of that. And I think that's a thing that God created in us, and it's a really awesome thing to foster. Yeah. So I know like for parents, we can kind of get a little bit stressed about whether our kids are really focused on what they need to be focused on or just wanting to get caught up in the life around them. But I think there definitely has to be a balance, and that's how you create those moments like you were talking about, Sawyer.
Well, and I don't remember who said it, but and maybe it's one of those anonymous things, I can't remember, but the idea of the goal of life is to live it. And that so often we're trying to find what's my purpose? What am I supposed to contribute? What am I supposed to XYZ? And there's even like good and godly aspects to that. But even within those, it becomes a lot about me, and that really the reason God created my life. Like if my daughter came to me and said, like, why did you have me? Like, why was I born? Why did you pick me? And it's just because I just love you. Like, I didn't even know you, and I love you, and I just wanted you to enjoy life. Like, I wouldn't say the goal of her life is to be happy, because that obviously that goes down different things, but it is to be enjoyed. And that proper enjoyment of life is this adventure of me and God in every ordinary moment, the lonely moments, the beautiful moments, the broken moments, all of those is an adventure. And behind every door, behind every cup of coffee, behind every little moment is this invitation from a God who loves me. One of my favorite songs, it's kind of a difficult worship song, so we don't sing it. It's a song called Everything is Sacred. It's by Pat Barrett. And we sang it one time, and there's this moment, the whole bridge of the song is, life is a gift and the giver is good. And you just sing it again and again. And for me, that is I have to sing it to myself at least once a week. It's just a reminder that no matter how difficult my life is, no matter how painful things are, no matter how frustrated I am. I joked before we filmed, I spilled a whole thing of Cheez-Its on the floor. And I'm like, why is this what my life is? That I have to pick up all these Cheez-Its on the floor. And in those moments, remember, but that's a gift. I have a body that can do this. I have breath in my lungs. That I get to be alive with God is a gift, and it's an adventure. And not in like the cheesy, like youth minister way of like, God got an adventure for your life, man. Like not in that, like in ordinary moments, just ordinary moments, being able to have this conversation. We talk about this off mic with each other. Like these conversations is a blessing to me. That just even if none of you guys were listening to this, the four of us getting to have this conversation is a blessing. And I just don't ever want to miss that. We want our kids to go, hey, that on a Saturday night, my family sat down and had pizza and watched a movie together. Oh, what a blessing it is to have a family. And just be able to say that to your kids. Like, we're talking a lot. I don't want you to have that long of a conversation. I want you to just be able to say, kids, y'all are a gift to me. And this is fun. And I'm glad we get to do it because God wanted us to love and enjoy each other. Donnie, what you're the hero, man. You got all things to say. So why don't you give us some kind of semblance of an actual intellectual thought here, man? Like bring us something good. So
the thing I was thinking about while you were talking is that I think, like we've said, life is an adventure in itself, and it's all those things. But I think sometimes the adventure is not always in the journey. It's in the people that you share that adventure with.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that because we go, well, I've got to get to XYZ, or this has to be accomplished, or all these things have to occur, where it's like, I have people in my home whom I love very much, and I should be sharing these moments and creating new adventures for them as well as myself. Because like I remember when when me and my wife had started talking about, having kids, that was one of the things I remember having a conversation. I said, we were at like an aquarium. I said, this is how I knew I was ready for kids, is because I was like, I want to share this with someone else.
Yeah.
I want to show this to someone. And I think for kids, anything we do with them is a new adventure, because most of the things we have grown numb to, in the sense of how exciting it is, they have no idea about. We're like, yeah, I've been here before. And then they get there and they're like, wow, look at all the things. And you're like, wow, I am such a fuddy-duddy. Like, I have lost my sense for adventure, And like, I think it's so important as a parent, as any person in any relationship, is don't forget that life has its adventures in every moment, and it's not just the things that you write about, or it's not just the things you capture in a picture. Sometimes it's just the existence of the moment that you're in. Because like it's different between being present and just having been presented with opportunities, kind of thing. Yeah,
I think that's huge. And I think that idea that we often miss, even as parents, is how important it is just to enjoy our kids. And I don't even mean in the sense like they're only going to be this little for this long. Yeah. Like, and that's true. I know my wife and I, we said that for a long time about like going up and like putting our kids to bed. And like every time that was difficult, just reminding ourselves like, this may be the last day. Who knows the day? Like my daughter just the other day goes, Daddy, I think I'm old enough where you don't have to read me stories because I can read myself. And I'm like, great, you're such a big girl. Like, I'm like, do you know how much that hurts me? Like all this kind of stuff. But like, I didn't know when the last day that was going to happen was. I didn't know. And like, so that part's important, but I just even mean just like enjoy them as people. Like so often I feel the weight, and we should, that I need to correct them and I need to help guide them towards loving Jesus, because letting them live without boundaries and consequences and all those things is not loving. We've talked about that on other ones. But sometimes I forget to go, they're just like this ball of good and bad and beautiful and broken, and they're messy, and all of that is good. And I just want to enjoy that. And so I kind of want to wrap up with these two quotes from one of my favorite Christian writers. His name is Frederick Buechner. And here are two thoughts that he had. One is about grace that I think go to this, and he just says it way better than I can. The first one's this: after centuries of handling and mishandling, most religious words have become so shop-worn, nobody's much interested anymore. Not so with grace for some reason. Mysteriously, even derivatives like gracious and graceful still have some of the bloom left. Grace is something you can never get, but can only be given. There's no way to earn it or deserve it or bring it about any more than you can deserve the taste of raspberries and cream, or earn good looks, or bring about your own birth. A good sleep is grace, and so are good dreams. Most tears are grace. The smell of rain is grace. Somebody loving you is grace. Loving somebody is grace. Have you ever tried to love somebody? A crucial eccentricity of the Christian faith is the assertion that people are saved by grace. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. The grace of God means something like, here is your life. You might have never been, but you are, because the party wouldn't have been complete without you. Here's the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. I am with you. Nothing can ever separate us. It's for you I created the universe. I love you. There's only one catch. Like any other gift, the gift of grace can be yours only if you reach out and take it. Maybe being able to reach out and take it is a gift too. I think this is a beautiful thing. You can't say that to your kids, but being able to let them receive that. This is the final one. This is also from Frederick Buechner. This has become kind of almost a thing for me this year. I've read it. It's in my prayer book, and I read it every so often, but it's this. He says, who knows how the awareness of God's love first hits people? Every person has his own tale to tell, including the person who wouldn't believe in God if you paid him. Some moments happen in your life that make you say yes right up to the roots of your hair, that makes it worth having been born just to have that happen. Laughing with somebody till the tears run down your cheeks, waking up to that first snow, being in bed with somebody you love. Whether you thank God for such a moment or you thank your lucky stars, it is a moment that is trying to open up your whole life. If you try to turn your back on such a moment and you hurry along to business as usual, it may lose you the whole ball game. But if you throw your arms around such a moment and hug it like crazy, it may save your soul. How about the person you know who, as far as you can possibly tell, has never had such a moment? Maybe for that person, the moment that has to happen is you. And I think for our kids, this is really what we're trying to get at in this podcast is there's a benefit to being able to talk about God and be able to shape their character. There's another thing to be able to make your home this place of grace where every moment when they look back on it, even my wife and I are having this conversation a lot these days of what if we give them so many consequences, or you have all these confrontations, or you fight, or you have this, and they look back and they go, that's all they remember. But if you could make your home also at the same time this place of loving acceptance, where even though you're broken and you're flawed and you make mistakes, there's so much grace and love and acceptance that when they look back, what they remember is laughing together. What they remember are sitting down. We have every Christmas, we drink hot cocoa. My kids talk about that all the time, of just sitting and sipping hot cocoa. And maybe it's sitting down to just watch a really good movie. And maybe you listen to Sawyer's Tale on Star Wars and you're like, nerd, grow up. Maybe. I'm not saying that if you think that's perfectly acceptable. He is a nerd and he should grow up. But maybe. But maybe you hear that story and it awakens something in you and it reminds you of, I want my kids to have those moments. And may those be what we do. So we're done now with the heavy portion of this. This was not intended to be heavy, but anyway, we want to now just talk about some good movies. Before we get to, all of us watched different movies in preparation for this to kind of be able to talk about, give you guys some suggestions, because I know it's hard. You got Netflix, you got HBO Max, you got all these different things out there. What are you going to sit down and watch? So we're trying to give you some suggestions. Before we get to, hey, here's the movie to watch, I just want to talk about what are some adventure movies that you've loved since you were a kid. So, some things, what are some ones that just kind of awakened in you? Sawyer already mentioned Star Wars. That was obviously huge for me as a kid too. That one was big. Indiana Jones is another big one for me. Sawyer, you got any?
Yeah, I would say Jurassic Park, first Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I would say E.T. Spielberg was just a huge role in my childhood. I would also say that, honestly, more so than any Marvel movie today, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were a big role. Even the third one, that third movie, I was so excited to see in theaters. I saw all three of them in theaters. They were some of my earliest theater experiences, and they are awesome. I loved, one that I saw way too early that I was on the verge of talking about it, but I was like, no, we can't do R-rated movies. The Matrix was huge for me. And I could go at length about the Matrix. And so there's a lot there. I could keep going is the thing.
I feel that you could keep going.
You like Sawyer? It's like, yes. I loved Waterworld the first time I saw it, for crying out loud.
What is going on, man?
I was like, oh man, I wish you'd made some kind of noise when the words "Waterworld" came out of his mouth.
I'm just like,
your enthusiasm theme that kicks on right there.
He said that Star Wars story. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. That's a good moment. And then he said Waterworld. Anyway,
look, okay.
Nope. You and Kevin Costner go back to where you belong, in obscurity. All right, Donnie Dorsey. Any movies as a kid were just like that was your adventure movies? Any of that kind of stuff?
I'd say easily things like Jumanji was a good one.
Excellent one.
Any of the like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, I love that. Like with the live action one.
Yeah.
3 of those, they're so good.
I remember watching them, and then I go back and watch them. I'm like, I still genuinely enjoy this. Like,
all right, Donnie, let me throw this back to you. Do you remember in Noonan where the Kroger at Thomas Crossroads is, when they had the video store in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we got Blockbusters in Noonan, we had that video store that you got there. I went like 4 weekends in a row and rented the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the one where they go back to the samurai times.
Yeah.
I watched that and Three Ninjas and Three Ninjas Strike Back.
Yep.
I watched those movies. I was really into the ninja thing for a while.
Oh, Three Ninjas was so good.
You mentioned Jumanji, and this is not any of the movies any of us are talking about, but I'll say the new Jumanjis are also pretty great. Both of them.
They are fun.
Are really fun. They're adventure movies and they're very much normal everyday kids getting sucked into this world. That's another thing, and has lots of cool stuff. We may end up covering those at one point on the podcast because there's some good things there about like stereotypes and the ideas we have about people, and it's a really good one. So Heidi, what about you? You're the mom of the podcast. Were there any things either as a kid or a teenager, movies that just like swept you up? Even like I said, like fairy tales, any of that kind of stuff that swept you up?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember like where I would like after watching Cinderella for the first time, I would like do my chores and like sing and like, and so I was like, oh yes.
Where are my rabbits?
I'm gonna be at a ball. I'm gonna be at a ball tonight, so it's not even gonna matter, But yeah, and I think like lots of like we had talked before the filming like Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh my gosh, like that was so much fun. Moana was another one that I thought about when you were naming some of the Disney ones where there's a female main character, and Moana is like such a fun adventure, and so yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of those that I've connected with and just could burst out any of the songs at any given time.
Yes. I already mentioned for me, like The Mummy, that was a big one for me. I was really into like just more like, and kind of every movie nowadays has kind of become an adventure movie because all the Marvel movies are adventure movies. Like everything's that. But like when you think of adventure movies, you think of these kind of like period piece kind of things. Like, so like a Pirates, Indiana Jones, The Mummy was a big one for me. Like anything that was those kind of like, you're going to an exotic location. You mentioned the Pirates, Heidi. When I went to see, I would have been like 12 or 13 when I went and saw Pirates of the Caribbean. I think I was 13. I may have been 14. I can't remember. Anyway, I went with my friends and I was already like really into like the art of filmmaking. And I thought I was going to be a filmmaker and all that kind of stuff. And we went and watched it with my friends and we went like opening day and I had like a whole row of people. And when we got out, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And they were like, yeah, that was pretty fun. I was like, you don't. They're like, yeah, Johnny Depp. And I'm like, yeah, he might be like the worst part of the movie for me. You got to understand, this movie is nuts. Like it was crazy. It was like scary and it was exciting and it was like romantic. It literally had all the things. Like it just did. And I think we all forget how much money that movie made. Like that movie was the movie. It completely brought back like swashbuckling as a genre of film. Like was just so much fun. And we are now plagued with all the Johnny Depp sequels because of it, because of how successful it was. But those first three, there's something special about them, especially the very first one.
I was just starting looking. I'm like, the stuff that I didn't even mention, like things like Space Jam and the Goofy movie like Mulan and Sandlot and Free Willy.
The Iron Giant. Anyone?
Iron Giant is good, but I'm telling you, man, Goofy movie.
Oh, Goofy movie's great.
There ain't nothing better than if we listen to each other's heart. Man, that was a whole other song. Seeing it to act.
His son's nightmare sequence in that movie scared the heck out of me when I was a kid.
It's a pretty terrifying thing.
That's
all right.
fair.
So let's get into the movie. So all those movies, I think we would all recommend, all fun movies, but we have some specific ones that we all want to talk about. So I want to start with Donnie Dorsey, hero of our podcast. And in this case, pick the hero of all of them. That is Sonic, fixed from his freaky teeth look that originally came out. Sonic the Hedgehog. This came out in 2020, came out right before the pandemic. I think it might have been the highest grossing movie of that year because nothing else came out after that.
The timing of it,
Yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog starring Jim Carrey and Jason Marsden, I believe, is also in that.
He's the human guy.
Yeah. He's like a sheriff or something, right?
Yeah, sheriff of the small town.
Yeah. All right, so tell us, Donnie, why do you think Sonic's a great movie, adventure movie to watch with your kids?
I think it just covers so many different things. Like there's adventure in like every little part of it. Like there's the fact that you have Sonic like in a world that he doesn't fully understand and he's trying to adapt. So the adventure of learning the world around him. Then you have like James Marsden's character who is learning how to go from what he's been accustomed to, his like small town life, to wanting to grow and move on to bigger things or things that will challenge him more. And then, you know, the dealing with finding someone that needs you, but also not knowing how to help them, but finding a way just by working together. There's the
bucket list.
The bucket list. I love the bucket list.
That was so fun. All the different like adventure, all the different ways they could check one thing off in that crazy scenario in the bar.
Gosh. And it was, and that whole sequence of events there was so much fun to watch. Like it was one of those movies where you kind of just suspended your disbelief of anything that could not be, and you just enjoyed the sequence of watching this like character you've seen in video games come to life, and just watching all that play out and all of these different characters be on screen. It was kind of a little bit of a nostalgia for me, like kind of going back, but also bringing it to the current. So
it does very much feel like the kind of movie, and I know I'm saying this about like existing IP being made into a movie, like that does sound like something we would do now. The form of the movie, though, doesn't feel like a modern movie. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It feels like something that would have come out in 1996, but just with better grab. Like it feels and I don't mean this once again, but it feels slight. Like it doesn't feel, I know that it's kind of about the end of the world, but it doesn't feel like it's about the end of the world. It feels pretty much just about like Sonic needs a family. And it's just, it's sweet in that way. Sonic 2 is really good too.
I was going to say, this is kind of a double feature, honestly. Sonic 2 is really fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff. And I'll just say, you can't go wrong. Both James Marsden and Tika Sumpter, who are the kind of married couple, two beautiful people to look at. So you're not going to go wrong there. Beautiful locations, beautiful people. Natasha Rothwell, who plays Rachel, who is Tika Sumpter's sister, who doesn't like anyone in the movie.
It's hilarious.
Her wedding scene.
She starts spelling out divorce.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, that whole thing is hilarious. And I'll say this. I don't know whether this is true or not, but in the first one, the one that Donnie's talking about, there's all those Olive Garden references that just get thrown out. Supposedly, the reason that is in there is because for people who don't know, they released a trailer of this movie in like 2018, and Sonic did not look like he looks in the final product. He looks totally freaky. If you want to see more about that, watch the Rescue Rangers movie.
Yeah, watch Disney.
Yeah, the Disney Plus on Disney Plus.
Which is a great movie.
Yeah, that's a fun movie too.
It's a really good.
But supposedly to pay for the work that had to be done to remodel Sonic, they had to sell Olive Garden. Olive Garden bought this right. Like, we'll pay for it if you say our movie so much. So like, I don't know if that's true, if that's an urban legend, but that's apparently why those scenes are in the. I mean, because it's pretty frequent how much they're like, and a gift card to Olive Garden. when you're here, your family, like, very funny. They found a way to work it in. But
I laughed a lot in this movie. Like it was like genuinely just enjoyable. Like it doesn't miss.
Both times we went, they were really good memories with our kids. We went right before the pandemic. And a movie we're probably going to cover on this podcast was the last movie. Well, no, actually, I'm going to say this wrong. I was going to say the movie we're going to cover at some point probably is the movie Onward, which is a Pixar movie that also came out right before the pandemic. The last movie we saw in theaters before the pandemic was me and my kids going to see Call of the Wild, which I would not recommend. We went and sat through Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford, who literally, I think his line of dialogue in every movie is, "Where is my paycheck? I'm only doing this for a paycheck. Where is my money?" So, all right, let's talk to Sawyer Hewlett, adventure-loving man himself. What is the movie that you are going to suggest for families?
This one's a little more for the teenagers. It's on the more teenage side. I don't think in terms of content, there's anything that reprehensible. It's just, look, it's a heist movie. I'm going with Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and we are going to pull off an Italian Job today.
Oh, I thought you were talking about those whatever Calvin Klein hats he did. This might just be for teenagers.
But no, the Italian Job. It's a fun movie. Really great heist sequences and really fun characters. This movie has Mos Def in a prominent role, which is just so 2003. Another movie that I owned on early DVD. We owned this movie on DVD. I don't know why. Here's the thing, just brutal honesty. It's not like a super well-made movie. It's not like Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're going to be like, Jesus, it's kind of perfect. It's just charming is the thing. And it has Mini Cooper.
I don't appreciate this F. Gary Gray slander going on right here.
This movie, okay? I love F. Gary Gray. Okay?
There's no reason for you to be dragging this man. He directed Straight Outta Compton. He directed Fate of the Furious, the only movie that uses 8 to finish a word. F8 of the Furious. What are you talking about? He directed The Negotiator, one of the greatest thrillers of the 90s. I love
F. Gary Gray, okay?
I don't think you do. I want you to apologize to the man. I want you to apologize to him right now.
Put you back into his
listen. You guys all need to apologize to Jim Carrey because you really didn't do him justice in that Sonic conversation. So we could always just go back and apologize to him and the guy you're talking about.
That is true. And supposedly Sonic 2 is going to be his last movie of all time.
Yeah, he said he's done after Sonic 2, which is kind of sad, if I'm being honest.
He's amazing in it.
Yeah. But
I don't know. I'm happy for him. Get out of the game on top, man. Sure. Go out on top like a king. Go out on top like an Eggman.
Like an Eggman. No, I just love this movie. Mark Wahlberg is doing a version of himself that he does in many movies. I really, really, I just love that this movie is kind of like it's just a capsule of 2003 cinema is the thing. It's fun. Here's the thing. The heist scenes are really well made. There are a couple of chase sequences like through LA with these Mini Coopers loaded with like bars of gold, which they just stole. That is really cool. And it's shot really well. This isn't like a 2003 movie with shaky cam that's everywhere. It does these really good long takes. The early heist scene where they steal the gold, the plot is ridiculous and awesome, and I love it is the thing. And so they basically, movie starts and there's the old grizzled mentor who teaches Mark how to pull off a heist and stuff like that. And they pull off the heist, and then they get double crossed, and the old guy gets killed. And then the rest of the movie is about them learning to steal back the gold bars that they had just stolen. And then it's really fun. The old guy's daughter ends up playing a role in the movie, and she falls in love with Mark Wahlberg, played by Charlize Theron. It is just such a fun movie, like absolute thrill ride through the whole time. And the characters are fun. This movie has Jason Statham. Okay. I love it. This movie's awesome.
I know you
Edward
love Jason
Norton
Statham. We've already had that conversation.
Edward Norton is the villain of this movie, and he plays it perfectly. He like literally the movie like doesn't use guns very much throughout the movie. And so at the end, when he pulls out a gun and points it at Mark Wahlberg, you're actually like, oh no, is he gonna shoot him and stuff like that. It is just a blast of a movie. I had an absolute
really good
blast.
And it has a really good team, like you've already mentioned. I mean, I think very much like the Ocean's movies, which this is clearly coming off of the success of those movies. But I do think it is because of this movie that F. Gary Gray was able to make Fate of the Furious. I think I've read that somewhere that because of the car chase sequences. So it's really good. It definitely is very much like a 2000s, early 2000s PG-13, meaning that they weren't trying to make these 4-quadrant movies. These aren't movies designed that your teenager will like it and your little kids. I don't remember there being a ton of objectionable content that your little kids would be like, you'd be like really embarrassed that they saw, but I don't think they'll be interested because they weren't trying to appeal to little kids. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy where there's going to be a little bit of language, but your little kids will love the raccoon. It's like, this is straight up. I do think older kids like it. I'm probably going to go back and watch it because I don't think I've seen it since it originally came out, and it's a lot of fun. But let's talk to Heidi Cooper. You brought a different kind of adventure movie, but still very thrilling, and a movie I think we all have seen and enjoyed. I don't know if Donnie, have you seen the movie she's about to talk about?
I have not, but I need to add it to my list.
Yeah, you do need to. It's really good.
This is great. All right, so Heidi, tell us, what movie are you bringing to the table?
Yeah, so I watched Free Solo again. When you said adventure, it was the first thought that came to my mind which is
available on Disney Plus for anyone who wants to watch. It's on Disney Plus. Yeah,
and if you haven't seen the premise of it, it's a guy and he is a free solo climber, and so he wants to climb El Cap, which is in Yosemite, and he's basically training, and they're filming it, and it's documentary style. But it's just about all the risks and like the why, and then the actual climb, and how that all plays out over time. So it's a really cool movie, and it's like at the end of the movie, if it ever gets slow, just move on to the end of the movie because it will have you literally like holding your breath.
Well, it's one of those movies that very much it's pretty short too. It's like, I didn't look, but I think it's like 90 minutes. It's pretty tight. And I don't know if Heidi said this part. It's a true story. It's a documentary. So this is not scripted. This is a real person. I've heard, honestly, the making of this movie is just as interesting as the movie itself, because the filmmakers behind it, who kind of become characters in the documentary as well, they very much were like, I don't know if he's going to make it, because if you don't know, free solo climbing is he's climbing without the assistance of ropes or any kind of safety harness. If he slips, that's it. And you very much feel that in this movie. I'll tell you another movie that kind of fits. It's by the same filmmakers that I might put up there as better than Free Solo, but it's really close. Is this movie they did called The Rescue that came out just last year, I think. In fact, Ron Howard basically remade it for Amazon Prime called it 13 Lives. It's about the soccer team in Thailand who was cave diving, got stuck. It's about the rescue attempt. This team uses the real people who did the swimming. They do these recreations, and it talks about how they had to do it, all the different things that went into doing, very much like Free Solo, where the first part is them kind of like preparing to do the thing. And then if I was breathing that last 45 minutes, I would be shocked. There was a point where I sat there and I went, oh yeah, I got to breathe. Like it is so, and hopefully, all the children make it out safe. If that's going to be, all of them make it out safe. But even knowing that, watching it, that's another really good one in the same kind of vein.
Well, and
same with me.
Solo.
Watching Free Solo. I've watched it more than once, several times, and every time I think, I know he's okay. I know he's fine, but I'm still scared.
Yes, in case you're afraid you're going to watch a movie where a grown man dies, and with your children, he makes it okay. He's all right in Free Solo. So we want to give you that. The funny
part is that I didn't tell my daughter what happens, and she kept saying, "Oh, he's dead. Oh no, nope, I can't watch this. He's dead. He's dead."
And yes, and we caught it on film.
Yeah, I
and your mom is letting you watch that.
Yes,
no.
yes.
Yeah, like I regularly. The first time I watched it, I was like, he posted something on Instagram about the movie today. It came out today. He posted on Instagram about it. I know that he doesn't die, but there's a part where he has to make a little jump is the thing. And when I tell you, I was literally dripping in sweat watching it. Yeah. It was so terrifying.
All right. So we would suggest all of those. I originally said I was going to talk about the either the Pirates of the Caribbean, which I've already talked about, or what I think are my kids' favorite adventure movies are the How to Train Your Dragon series, which at least the first two, I think they're both perfect movies. The third one's good, but not quite as great. 1 and 2 are almost perfect movies. So
two is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think
I love.
It's hard for me to move past how good the first one was and how seeing those flying sequences, very much like we talked about with the Sea Beast and how beautiful it was. I had never seen flying scenes, even in a real movie, that felt that visceral. Like I felt like I was flying with Toothless in the first one, like just so beautiful. The story behind it, the father relationship, and then 2, I don't know if it tops it, but it certainly is in the same category. But the movie I'm going to talk about, for the sake of what we're talking about on this movie, is an adventure movie, but it is a movie that one of my daughters in particular is obsessed with, and it's so bizarre she's obsessed with it that I'm excited to talk about it. It is from 1998. It's called The Mask of Zorro, and it is my daughter Heaven's favorite movie. And this is because, I don't know, I shouldn't say it's her favorite movie. It is her favorite character. She almost, the girls decided last Halloween to do like a group costume, but we had already bought her Zorro costume. She for sure was going to be the only 8-year-old dressed up like Zorro for that. We were holding a baby shower at our house, and I had gone upstairs, and I was supposed to keep the kids upstairs with me. And I was just turning on movies that I want to watch. I said, "Oh, The Mask of Zorro." I used to love that movie. And I turned it on, and she sat with me the whole time, and she said, "Daddy, this is the greatest movie ever." She loves Zorro. She was obsessed with Zorro, which is bizarre because, once again, this movie from 1998 very much feels like there's a lot more romance in this movie, which may be part of it than are in modern ones. There's even, I will say this, you may want to watch it with especially if you got boys, you may want to watch it. There's a moment in the movie, no like nudity or anything like that, where Zorro undresses Catherine Zeta-Jones, and it I was a little uncomfortable at first, but she was just into this movie, loved it. It's a bizarre choice to have Anthony Hopkins and Catherine Zeta-Jones, 2 Welsh actors, play Mexican Americans, but that's the choice they made in 1998. But yeah, this is a movie I love. Martin Campbell, who has directed 2 of the best James Bond movies, GoldenEye and Casino Royale, directed this movie. It is written by the same writers of Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek, and they were kind of the go-to adventure movie people in the late 90s, early 2000s. Antonio Banderas is, just amazing in this movie. The action is good. The adventure is good. There's kind of this mystery that's going on that he's kind of solving. It's a revenge thriller at times. It really works. But for the sake of what we talked about of just building memories, this is just a daddy in heaven memory is we're Zorro people. So do you guys remember The Mask of Zorro? Have you seen The Mask of Zorro?
Oh yeah. That's a good
for
movie.
sure. And when you were talking about it, mine was The Man in the Iron Mask.
Ooh, that is so good.
So weird about that movie. That's one of those like that.
You know what? I think it's a DiCaprio thing too, because I kind of remember. I remember that movie coming out. My mom had gone to see it in like theaters with some friends, and it came on Encore. Because remember, like when everyone just had Encore, it was like the discount. It was the Walmart movie channel everyone had. It came on Encore like every day, and I would just watch it again and again. It's like, yeah, go get him, D'Artagnan. Like, I was so invested in that movie. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Donnie, have you seen The Mask of Zorro?
I think I saw it, but it's been a long time since I've watched that movie.
Yeah, it is really fun, and very much like Pirates of the Caribbean. There's some kind of, I wouldn't say gruesome, but once again, if you've got younger kids, it might be a little much for them. But I think like preteen teenagers, I will say there's a man's head in a jar at one point, and if that's going to be a little much for your little kids, it terrified me when I was a kid. Once again, my 7-year-old, she was probably 6 at the time, was like, "That's cool." So I don't know what that says about her, but she was all about that movie. So yeah. Anything else? Any other things as we've been talking just about? We've gone long on this one, but I think it's been fun. It's been good. Any other thing about adventure movies that came up for you guys? No,
I mean, yeah, like as long as like we've talked about like the like pantheon adventure movies, the movies that we've talked about today. Okay, like I've talked about The Italian Job. That's a little bit like of a
pantheon movie, right there.
No, but
I
like
think there's a Criterion collection of it somewhere.
Exactly. Well, no, like that's my point. Like the thing is, there are so many adventure movies that we scratched a very tiny surface of great adventure movies today. Like,
well, and we didn't talk about. I mean, almost all the Disney princess ones are. I mean, Heidi mentioned Cinderella. I do feel bad if you've got young girls. Like Moana is a great one. Is a great adventure movie.
Sleeping Beauty, if you want to go classics and stuff like that. I love
Raya. Raya is another one that's like
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah,
yes.
For girls. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, we hope that you guys have a great time just watching a movie with your kids and enjoying life and teaching them to enjoy life in God's good world. And as you do, you'll teach them to love Jesus and his way of life even more. So we will see you guys next time.